Okay. Good morning very good morning to all of you. Once again, thank you very much for choosing to spend this beautiful, pleasant Sunday morning with us on this interesting session on building resilience and managing stress. So, first of all, now this is one of the series of seminars that we are going to conduct by the Academy of Finance and the ICMA Australia Sri Lankan chapter. We already have taken part in a couple of seminars, and we have lined up another series of seminars for which we'll always be given the information. And also, some of these seminars you will be allowed to see the script and the video clip also, and we will share with you the details. So once again, managing stress. Now, all of us have spent nearly 2 months, most of us at our homes, and a little bit peacefully, are now and again getting ready to go back to work from tomorrow and get into our normal lifestyle. So we thought this is the ideal time for us to have this session. And before we start the session, let me tell you a couple of housekeeping rules. Number one, when you join this session, have a completely open mind, and while we do the session, try all the practices that we mentioned to you. And then, if possible, if you don't have any limitations, please keep your video switched on, right? Just keep your video switched on and avoid multitasking. For you to get the best out of this session, avoid multitasking, be there, fully be mindful and be there with the session, and find a quiet place where you are less likely to be disturbed, right? Find a quiet place where you are less likely to be disturbed, and also keep your technical devices on silent, because you're going through some activities as well. So therefore, please keep your technical devices on silent. And let us begin the session. And before we begin the session, let me take another minute to introduce the two facilitators who have very willingly agreed to spend this time with us and help our community, CMA community. And let me introduce them. Let me start by introducing Atuza. She's Atuza Khadim. She is a lawyer, meditator, and a tribunal member, a management consultant, and a skill trainer and a coach in conflict management and mindfulness. She's a certified mindfulness-based emotional intelligence teacher and who is also CEO of Resilience Within. He holds an MBA and a business management bachelor's and is a certified mindfulness-based emotional intelligence teacher, a former global brand manager and a country manager for a leading multinational company. His vision to transform 1 billion lives through mindfulness inspired him to form Resilience Within. This aims to provide scientifically proven tools and techniques to reduce stress and improve emotional intelligence. Once again, thank you for all of you for participating in this session, and thank you our two facilitators, Adusa and Sahan, very willing to ask you to help you. Over to you, the two of you, please take on the session. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Kapila. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking part in this unique session. It's going to be an educational session. It's going to be insightful, but most of all, it's going to be practical. So on that note, I would like to invite you to find a posture that enables you to be relaxed and attentive at the same time. So I prefer to keep my back straight and my neck straight. I keep my feet firmly placed on the floor and my hands on my thighs. So as Mr. Kapila mentioned, this is actually going to be an experiential learning session, right? So let's take a deep breath in. And as you breathe in, relax your shoulders, relax your facial muscles. And as you exhale, gently close your eyes. Gently close your eyes. For some, closing eyes might seem somewhat difficult. If that's the case, you can keep them slightly open but unfocused. In other words, you can keep your eyes downcast. Let's take another deep breath in. And as you exhale, relax your body, relax your mind. Let's take another deep breath in. And as you exhale, further relax your body, relax your mind, and gently bring your attention to the natural process of breathing. Bring your attention to the natural process of breathing. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. And breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. You might even notice that cold air is going in through the nostrils as you breathe in. And warm air is coming out through the nostrils as you breathe out. You might even notice your stomach expanding as you breathe in, and it contracting as you breathe out. Wherever you feel the breath most vividly, make that your anchor point, your home base. So keep your attention either on the nostrils or on the stomach, place where you feel the breath most vividly. Make that your anchor point, your home base. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. If you notice, if you notice that your mind has wandered, with a sense of kindness and curiosity, gently bring your attention back to the breath. If you have a human mind, you have a wandering mind. So whenever you notice that your mind has wandered, gently bring it back to the breath. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Let's bring this practice to a close by taking another deep breath in. Breathing in and exhaling. As you exhale, let go of any thoughts, images that you have in your mind. Let's take another deep breath in. And as you exhale, relax your body, relax your mind. And let's take another deep breath in. Breathing in and exhaling. And as you exhale, gently open your eyes. Gently open your eyes. So thank you everyone for taking part in the arrival practice. Whenever we conduct a workshop or a one-to-one coaching session, we usually ask participants, how did it feel? How did it feel to engage in this arrival practice? Even though we can't ask your feedback online, we can't really hear you. I would like to invite you to share your experience using the chat feature. So in a word or two, if it felt relaxing, you can see it felt relaxing. Or if it was confusing, you had so many thoughts in your mind, you can say it was confusing. Some of you might have even fallen asleep. That's also fine. So whatever that you felt, just share with us, in a word or two. So relaxing, yes, thank you so much. Awesome. Relaxed, yeah. So something that usually participants share whenever we conduct a session is that it's relaxing. Thank you so much for sharing the feedback. It's calming. And some people even say that it's refreshing. But I can guarantee you 99.9% of you would have noticed that you have a wandering mind, a mind that's extremely unruly, that loves to go to the past to think about maybe a meeting that you had on Friday, or an argument that you had with your spouse, or it loves to go to the future. How do I travel to work for the very first time? Do I have to carry my NIC card? All these thoughts come up, and you're probably worried about job security and whatnot. So your mind loves to go to the past or the future, and rarely loves to stay in the present moment. And this is a practice that we teach at Search Inside Yourself, the mindfulness-based emotional intelligence training program developed at Google, where Google basically brought in neuroscientists, mindfulness experts, and emotional intelligence practitioners and experts to create this unique curriculum for their participants or Googlers, which became huge and is now a separate entity altogether. So in those programs, what we say is physically you can be present in a meeting or even in a conversation that you're having with a loved one, but rarely do we find ourselves both physically and mentally present at the same time. So the arrival practice enables us to be both physically and mentally present at the same moment. And this is something that, especially at organizations like Google, they encourage every employee to engage in the arrival practice whenever they come to a meeting. So before a meeting starts, you can actually take 1 minute off. You don't have to give instructions. You keep your phone aside, you close your eyes, or you keep your eyes open, doesn't matter. But you simply observe your thoughts, or you bring your attention to the breath. This enables you to fully arrive to a meeting. And that's what we practiced. You can even do it when you go to work, just before you open your car door. You can practice this. When you come back from work, after 8 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, before you arrive at home, before you get out of the car, practice this. So whenever you arrive at home, not only physically arrive, but you can also mentally arrive. So this is a very simple practice, which we started the session off with. On that note, I would like to invite Atusa to take over. Atusa, over to you.
Good morning, everyone in Sri Lanka. So I'm talking to you from Australia with the wonders of technology. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Thank you all very much for attending today, and thank you for that lovely arrival practice, Sahan. So why are we here? The subject matter is developing resilience within, building resilience and managing stress. So I don't know about you, but my life is often very busy. It's very wired. There's information overload. I have to multitask, and there's lots of distractions. And I often have an experience of overwhelm and stress, and I'm pretty sure I'm not on my own there. On a societal level, of course, we are facing even more pressure than usual. The world appears very, very uncertain. And we can take a term from the military. So this term, VUCA, which is volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous. And this is a term that the US military used to describe a battlefield. But does our life sometimes feel that way? Are our lives often volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous? And I think that this COVID-19 has really highlighted and magnified this. So the question is, with all this uncertainty and volatility, how do we stay emotionally balanced? How do we take care of our mental health when everything seems so out of control? How do we keep staying motivated? How do we build resilience? How do we actually arrive and are present to our life, to our loved ones, to the work that we do, and most importantly for ourselves? How do we stay calm? How do we stay focused? But also, how do we find joy and meaning in our life? How do we have quality of life? So I want to introduce you to this lovely man by the name of Viktor Frankl. So Sahan, if you could just change that slide, thank you. Some of you may have come across this lovely gentleman before. He was a psychiatrist, a Jewish psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, and he was incarcerated in Auschwitz. And imagine this man, everything had been taken away from him. He no longer even had a name. I mean, lost his family, his livelihood, his community, his wife, not even a name. So he was now a tattooed number on his arm. And then he realized that actually no one can take your freedom away, not what is a true understanding of freedom. What is that? What is that understanding of true freedom? He said that there is, between stimulus and response, there is a space. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and freedom. So I'll talk to you what that means. Ever come across this idea of autopilot? So I'll just give you an example. Has it ever happened where you've driven somewhere, and feel free please to put comments in the chat box as I'm talking, and you've driven somewhere and you get there and you just have no memory as to how you got there? Please let me know if that's you, so that if I come to Sri Lanka, I don't share the road with you, okay? Has it ever happened to you where you've eaten lunch at your desk maybe, and you get to the end of your lunch and you don't even remember what it was that you've eaten, you haven't tasted anything? On a more serious note, does it happen to you that in the most dearest of relationships that you keep repeating the same negative behaviors, despite your best intentions, harming yourself and others? And you don't want to keep doing that. That's what we mean by being an autopilot. It's like being in a waking sleep, about not being present. So my question to you is, if you're not present, if you're not here, who is living your life? This one wild, precious life that you have, who is living it? How can we possibly have meaningful and fulfilling relationships and lives if we're not here? How can we learn? How can we appreciate our lives? So the good news is Viktor Frankl, for whom everything was taken away, and he said, actually, there's a possibility of choice. We can choose to be awake. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. So he says, we can just stop and not be on autopilot, just wake up, okay? We have the ability, the power to choose what we want to do. So rather than being in this waking sleep, like an automaton, just doing what we usually do, we actually are choosing, living an intentional life. So rather than being run by old patterns of thought, we're actually living an intentional life. We can see the situation and respond with wisdom rather than react as we usually do. Okay, well, how? How do we do that? I mean, it all sounds great, but how do we do that? This amazing gentleman is called Jon Kabat-Zinn, and again, some of you may be familiar with him. He's the sort of the father of mindfulness in the West. You in Sri Lanka, you are just so fortunate. Many of you, I'm sure, have already grown up with a lot of these concepts. In the West, most people are completely ignorant to the possibility of being awake. So this gentleman, Jon Kabat-Zinn, brought the message of mindfulness to the West. And this is how he said, how we can cultivate a life of being awake, to live an intentional, happy life, to manage the many stresses in our life. So how can we practice being in that space between stimulus and response? And he said, it's pretty simple. It's just by being aware about what's happening, about being mindful. So what does that mean? Have you come across that term mindfulness before? I'm sure many of you, I mean, it's in the zeitgeist, isn't it? I'm sure many of you would have heard about it. And no doubt some of you would already have a mindfulness and meditation practice. But this is his definition. I think it's a really practical and simple one. He says, mindfulness is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So it's not just about paying attention, but it's about bringing a special quality to that attention, to that awareness. And that special quality is in being non-judgmental, with an attitude of curiosity and kindness. That's the invitation. With an attitude of curiosity and kindness, what is going on? And then I'll make a choice as to how I want to proceed. So Sahan, is there a need now, do you think?
Well, I come from the corporate sector, and a question that I usually ask is, when someone throws a new concept at me, is there actually a need? You know, do I really need to invest time and effort, my resources behind a fad? You know, in the West, you know, there are these fads, you know, eating healthy or going to the gym, and so many other things crop up. So is there a need for a mindfulness intervention? That's the question that I asked. And recently, you know, whenever I speak to my friends, something that regularly comes up is, Sahan, you know, I'm extremely stressed because of COVID-19, right? And it's so funny because stats actually disagree. So whatever that you see on screen right now is actually a few years old. And so the simple answer is, you're not stressed because of COVID-19. You've actually been stressed for a very long period. And if you're a Sri Lankan, mind you, you're probably far more stressed than many other nationalities, you know. So last year, Gallup actually did a study. It's called Global Emotions Report. You can Google it up, and the report is freely available. In there, they actually named the top 10 countries who are more stressed. And Sri Lanka was ranked as the 6th most stressed country in the world. Number 1 was Greece. The Greece economy had crashed, so that's understandable. Number 7 was US. And number 6 was Sri Lanka. You know, people come to Sri Lanka to relax, to unwind. But Sri Lankans were ranked as the 6th most stressed country in the world. It doesn't come as a surprise because in 1995, Sri Lanka had the highest number of suicide rates in the world. Even today, we are among the top 10, top 20 countries when it comes to suicide. Around 1.5 million people suffer from depression and anxiety, according to WHO. And all these individuals are not strangers, you know. They're pretty much us. And even if you look at a global level, from an individual standpoint, we now know that through research, not just one or two, but through multiple research studies, we know that stress is directly linked to heart attacks, cancer, lung ailments, accidents, cirrhosis, depression, which finally leads to suicide. And even at an organizational level, in US alone, organizations lose around $300 billion, 300 billion with a B, right? 300 billion is lost because of workplace stress. So that's people not coming to work. Around 1 million people miss work only in US alone because of stress. Productivity losses, I think if I remember the stats right, around 150 billion is because of productivity losses. An employee who's not mentally fit is not performing up to his or her full potential. So this is a huge toll on organizations. And then healthcare costs, increasing healthcare costs has a huge impact on organizations as well. And a question that I would like to ask, stats might not be truly impactful to us, but a question that I would like to ask you is, do you know someone very close to you, like a very close relative or a very close friend who suffers from these ailments, like hypertension, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, someone who had a bypass surgery, or who has high cholesterol, or has diabetes? So I can tell you, within 10 seconds, you'll be able to name at least 5 people, because I can, right? I know so many individuals who have these ailments. So the stat that Gallup came out with last year, with Sri Lanka being the 6th most stressed country in the world, actually tallies with our own personal experiences. And it's quite unfortunate to be in such a tropical island nation and to not really take care of ourselves mentally. It's actually a crime. So is there a need? The simple answer is there truly is a need, especially for Sri Lankans. And what we see is stress is not something that's unique to us. It's a global pandemic. And we see that a lot of organizations have embraced mindfulness in order to battle stress, anxiety, depression. And through various research studies conducted by some of the most prominent universities in the world, we now know that mindfulness is pretty much like a panacea. It's actually not a panacea, but it comes very close, because we know from studies that it increases resilience, it increases productivity. That's why organizations like Google, Apple, Ernst & Young, and so many others have truly embraced mindfulness. And they have, you have even like a director of mindfulness or chief mindfulness officers popping up in these organizations, because an employee who's productive, who's physically and mentally healthy, can impact your bottom line in a positive way. Then another thing is, we now know through research that mindfulness actually increases your emotional intelligence, your overall well-being. It boosts your health and immunity. So for example, University of Massachusetts, which started the mindfulness-based stress reduction program under the guidance of Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, from their research, and there's a lot of research because the program started in the early 1970s, which shows that your pain threshold actually increase through mindfulness, your immune function increase because of mindfulness, and everyone's concerned about immunity. Here's a simple solution. And if I were to share a single study, a meta-analysis done by Dr. or Professor Yin Yuan Tang at the Texas Neuroimaging Center. In his meta-analysis, he actually reviewed multiple neuroscientific research studies. And he said in his study that there are 3 main benefits that multiple research studies point towards. So because of mindfulness, your attention increases. So parts of the brain responsible for attention light up through mindfulness or through mindfulness practice. Then emotional regulation. So your ability to manage emotions, so your emotional intelligence capacity increases because of mindfulness. And finally, self-awareness. So self-awareness, parts of the brain that are responsible for self-awareness lights up because of mindfulness practice. And self-awareness is the foundational skill for emotional intelligence, and emotional regulation is the second skill that Daniel Goleman points out in his framework around emotional intelligence. And these are essential skills for a leader. If I remember right, the Mindfulness Leadership Institute did a study, and they found out that 54% of your job performance depends on emotional intelligence. And most of the leaders who are joining this call would agree with me when I say great employees rarely become great managers, right? Great employees rarely become great managers simply because they lack emotional intelligence. So, on that note, let's quickly move on to the next slide. So, mindfulness is not something that neuroscientists and academics are interested in. They're extremely interested in it because there's around 1,000 research papers every year published on mindfulness and benefits of mindfulness. So if you were to Google neuroscience and mindfulness, you'll find not hundreds, but thousands of research papers. And this interest actually has trickled down to the corporate sector. You have prominent CEOs embracing mindfulness, starting with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was a strong proponent of mindfulness. And you have new CEOs like Jeff Weiner of LinkedIn, another ambassador for mindfulness. You have people like Ariana Huffington embracing mindfulness. And you have new designations, as I mentioned before. So SAP, the German software giant, last year actually created a new designation. So they now have a director of global mindfulness practice. So across 23 SAP organizations or officers, they practice mindfulness in a very systematic way. There are sports stars and sports teams who've embraced mindfulness, starting with basketball, like Chicago Bulls, to Olympic rowing team, UK rowing team, which won the highest number of gold medals. So many people have embraced mindfulness. But there's a group of individuals who you would rarely expect to see practicing mindfulness, and that's Navy SEALs, the US Special Forces soldiers. So they engage in mindfulness practice, and it's not something that they started recently. It has been practiced for years, if not for decades. And mindfulness, as you guys mentioned in our arrival practice, we only practice for like 2-3 minutes, and most of you said it's relaxing, it's refreshing. Who requires it more than a Special Forces soldier? So for us, if we fail or if we don't perform up to the mark at work, the worst thing that could happen to us is to get fired. And these guys actually get shot at, right? So it's a highly stressful profession to be in. And mindfulness is definitely a tool that they use. So irrespective of whether you are a Special Forces soldier or an employee, a mother or a father, an employer, the way your body reacts when you're stressed is pretty much the same. So for example, let's say that you're walking in the Yala Natural Forest Reserve, right? Soon after the pandemic ends, you feel like going on a trip, and you're walking in the Yala forest, and suddenly an elephant jumps out, and what would you do? A wild elephant who has killed so many human beings is 5 feet in front of you, right? What would you do? So the body would react pretty much the same way that it would react when you see an email from your boss, or when your spouse makes a rude remark, or when your kids are creating havoc inside the house. Whatever it may be, your body basically reacts the same way. So it starts with a very small, a very primitive part of our brain called the amygdala lighting up. So amygdala is a very primitive part of the brain. It basically scans for threats and opportunities. And when this lights up, it sends signals to the hippocampus. And hippocampus, which is pretty much like the CEO of our body, sends information throughout our body. Basically, it sends signals to adrenal cortex glands that are near our kidneys, and they release cortisol and adrenaline. And adrenaline increases your heart rate. Cortisol helps to keep your heart rate elevated. It increases your blood sugar levels. Non-essential functions like digestion stops. your breathing becomes very shallow and quick because you're trying to get as much oxygen as possible into your system and to send it to essential parts of the brain and body. And your muscles tighten up. And this happens whether it's a real life threatening situation or even if it's an artificially induced one. So for example, if I were to tell you to recall uh, a very challenging situation which happened 10 years back, 20 years back, 30 years back, your body would respond the same way. So your brain can't differentiate between what's real and what's uh, artificially induced by your own brain. So even if you were to think about a worst case scenario that could happen 5 years down the line, you losing your job or someone in your family coming down with a terminal illness, whatever that you're thinking activates your stress response mechanism. Now, what can you do? What can you do when your brain is actually against you, right? It's creating these worst case scenarios over and over again. And especially when you're facing a pandemic. So what can you do? We can actually practice something that the special forces soldiers use. So this is actually called 4x4 tactical breathing. It's also called deep diaphragmatic breathing. And it's very simple. So this technique can actually activate your parasympathetic nervous system. So when you're stressed, your sympathetic nervous system is activated. And when you use this technique within a couple of minutes, you can forcibly activate your parasympathetic nervous system. You can activate your relaxation response mechanism instead of your stress response mechanism. So I would like to invite you at this moment to try out this technique. It works for special forces soldiers, but see whether it works for you, right? So find a posture that helps you to be relaxed and attentive at the same time. So you can even imagine that you're a special forces soldier now. So your back is straight, your neck is straight. Your hands can be kept on your thighs, your feet firmly placed on the floor. And you can take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, relax your shoulders, relax your neck muscles, relax your jaw muscles. Right? Okay, now the technique is very simple. You breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold air in your lungs for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, and you hold your breath again for 4 seconds. And then you repeat. So it's very simple. But since we are doing it for the very first time, and there could be individuals who have health constraints, I would encourage you not to breathe in for 4 seconds or hold for 4 seconds. Do what feels right for your body. So you can even try to keep your right hand on your stomach, like just below the navel or on top of the navel. Just keep your right hand there. So when you breathe in, you should notice that your stomach is expanding. And when you're exhaling, you should notice that your stomachs are contracting. Okay, let's do a quick 4x4. So let's take a deep breath in. And as you breathe in, your stomach muscles should expand. You can close your eyes, breathing in. And now hold your breath. Hold your breath. Hold your breath and exhale. And as you exhale, your stomach muscles contract. So your right hand should actually go in now. You hold for 4 seconds. And again, start over by taking another deep breath in. Your stomach expands. Hold, 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 and exhale. Stomach contracts. Hold, 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 and inhale. Hold, 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 exhale. Completely exhaling, contracting your stomach muscles. Hold, 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 And inhale. Stomach muscles expand, and you're holding your breath, holding your breath, holding your breath, and exhaling. Stomach muscles contract, you're holding your breath, holding your breath, holding your breath, and inhaling. And now we can convert the 4x4 into another practice. Exhaling, relaxing your body, relaxing your mind, and bringing your attention to the natural process of breathing. So breathing in naturally now. So relax your shoulders, relax your stomach muscles. And as you breathe in, you can count each breath. Breathing in, 1. Breathing out, 2. Breathing in, 3. Breathing out, 4. Breathing in, 5. Breathing out, 6. Count up to 10. Count up to 10. And when you're ready, let's take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, relax your body, relax your chest, your stomach. Let's take another deep breath in. And as you exhale, gently open your eyes. Gently open your eyes. So how was the 4x4? Feel free to share your thoughts in a word or two using the chat feature. So this is something which I use when I'm driving, right? So when you're driving, you can't close your eyes, but you can still do the 4x4 with your eyes open. You can even do it when you're in the boardroom, right? Let's say there's a meeting going on and you're not actually involved and you're engaged in mind wandering. There's a Harvard study that actually tells us that 47% of the time we are engaged in mind wandering, right? So you could be at work in front of your computer or in a meeting, but there's a 50% chance that you're not truly present in a meeting. So when you're doing this, it helps you to quickly come in to a state of being where you are relaxed, right? And sometimes you would have noticed, I come from the corporate sector. Sometimes you're in a meeting that's really stressful. You shouldn't really be there, or even if you should be there, people are arguing. Because if it works for a special forces soldier, more often than not, it should work for you. So I usually practice this when I'm driving, because in Sri Lanka, people cut you off all the time and you're about to lose it. Practice 4x4. So the moment your parasympathetic nervous system is activated, you're relaxed. So this is the science behind it. And I would encourage everyone to practice this. So thank you so much for the feedback. Thank you so much. Good to see that it works for us laymen as well, not only for special forces soldiers. On that note, I think we should move on to the next section. Atusa, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, that practice, thank you very much, Sahan. That practice really is a great practice for when you're feeling stressed, because it really does give you the opportunity to stop and just calm your system down. And obviously it puts you also, the moment you actually do calm down, it puts you in a position to be able to be aware of what's going on for you. If you've been triggered, it gives you that opportunity to look. And going back to that definition that we had from Viktor Frankl, it puts you into that sweet spot between stimulus and response, so that you can make a choice to respond rather than react to a situation. So mindfulness builds awareness of when we're stressed and catching it before we're taken over. Now, a really good tool that is here all the time that helps us build that awareness is our body. And why is that? Because neuroscience tells us that emotions are a physiological response to stimuli in the body and the brain. So I'll just get you to chew over that for a minute. So it's saying that emotions are a physiological response. That's it. It's just an experience in your body that is responding to a stimulus. So just like Sahan was saying, whether it's an elephant jumping out at you, which sounds terrifying, or an email from your boss, an adverse email, the emotions arise, yeah? Whether they're fear or anger or sadness or happiness. And we feel it in our body. So let's just check that out for ourselves for a minute. Could I just get you to close your eyes for a minute and conjure up in your mind the last time you had a stressful situation in your life? I don't have to go back too far. I've been in isolation with 3 children, so it's pretty immediate for me. Just see if you can remember what was happening for you, and just see if you can notice it. Where are you experiencing whatever was happening for you in your body? Just check in. And if you could just put some words in the chat room, that would be helpful for everybody. I don't know, you're feeling something in your chest or in your stomach? Is there a tightness in your jaw or your throat maybe? Where are you feeling it? Just really check in with yourself. Okay. So just take one beautiful, mindful breath now. Thank you very much for the comments. Just let that go now. And now I'd like you to bring to mind an image of a dear one. Someone or some being, could be a pet, could be a family member, a friend, someone that you love very dearly. And imagine that you have gone and you haven't seen them for a long time, and you're really looking forward to seeing them, and then you see them. Just see if you can imagine that. Now notice, where are you feeling those emotions in the body? What are you feeling? Is there a warmth? Is there a coldness? Which area of your body? What are you feeling? Just really check in with yourself. And again, if you'd like to put any comments in the chat box, that would be fantastic. All right. Well, interestingly, there's a study that was done in Finland, and they had 700 participants from all different countries all over the world. And they showed them videos and pictures of distressing and lovely things. And they got them to record these physiological responses, just like you were just checking in with yourself, these physiological responses by way of a heat map that they were colouring. Have a look at that slide. It's really quite an astonishing slide. Let's look at that example of anger. Does that ring true to you? How people have reported where they felt anger, a real heat in their chest, going all the way, and their head. So the stronger the colour, the yellows and the reds obviously are the stronger colours, and then the blues and so on are the colder. Astonishingly, people, different ages, genders, from different countries, all had very, very similar reports as to how they experienced emotions. Just have a look at that. What about, say, sadness? Does that ring true to you? Is that how you feel when you feel sad? So our bodies really give us really, really valuable and immediate data about what's going on in our emotional weather system. All right, so, okay, so what do we do with this knowledge? This emotional awareness through mindfulness enables us to have a very subtle liberating shift. So the liberating shift is that if you think, I am angry, I am anger, then you experience yourself, your being as anger. It's an existential identification with being angry, as opposed to, I am experiencing anger in my body. So what this knowledge, if we can put it into practice, what it permits us to do is to go from the existential to experiential. So rather than I am angry, there's an experience of anger in my body. So the analogy often that is given is just like clouds in the sky. So this blue sky is always there, right? Even in a big storm, and I'm sure most of you would have been in planes and you fly above the clouds and the blue sky is there. So just like clouds in the sky are not the same as the sky itself, your emotions are not the same as you. They come and they go. And you can watch those thoughts and emotions coming and going without being caught up by them. Okay? So should we just do a practice? Sahan, could I get you to just change that slide? We can do just a little practice to help us practice these two skills that we've just mentioned. So what is it that we're going to develop? It's developing a higher resolution awareness of our emotions before we're taken over by them, so that we have a choice as to how to respond. Witnessing the emotions as experiential and not existential. So it's not the story of who I am, it's just an experience that I'm experiencing right now. So in this practice, could I invite you to whatever emotions you meet, just to meet them with curiosity and kindness rather than judgment. So going back to that lovely definition of mindfulness by John Kabat-Zinn, when he said, mindfulness is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So we're just going to do this lovely practice called the body scan. So if I could just invite you, as in the previous practices, just a sitting balanced and upright in a manner that you are relaxed but alert. And if I could invite you to close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that. And when we're doing this practice, keep that image of that loved one in mind as we are doing this practice. So just start with taking 3 deep breaths. And just bring gentle awareness just to the natural breathing. Just notice your in-breath and your out-breath and the spaces in between. Now bring your attention to the top of your head. Noticing any sensations or lack of sensations. There's nothing right or wrong. You're just noticing with curiosity and kindness. And shifting your attention to the back of your head, to your ears, and to the back of your neck. Now direct your attention to your face. Just be aware of the whole face. And notice your lips, your mouth, gums, tongue, teeth, your nose, cheeks, your forehead, your eyes, your jaw. You holding any tension in any of those areas? Just notice. And just see if you can just let that go for the minute. Now bring your attention to your neck and your shoulders and your throat. For a lot of us, we manifest a lot of emotion in our shoulders and in our throat. What's going on for you? And all the time, just have that image of your loved one in front of you. And just see what you're experiencing. What are the physiological experiences in your body? Now, if you could please shift your attention to the upper arms, the lower arms, your hands, and your fingers. Bring your attention to your upper back, then to the middle of your back, your lower back. Our backs carry a lot of our load and store a lot of our tension, so they really deserve special attention. What's going on in your back? Just with an attitude of curiosity and kindness. And if your mind wanders, it's absolutely fine. Remember, there's clouds in the sky. Just come back to the sound of my voice. Now bring your attention to your front, your chest. Is there any tightness or openness there? What are you experiencing as you think of your loved one? Your stomach, the lower part of your body, and your internal organs, if possible. What are you experiencing? Now just sensing the lower part of your body. Notice your legs. First of all, your right leg, and then your left leg, and your hips. Is there any tightness or openness? And now bring your attention to your feet. Really notice the feeling of your feet flat on the ground. What's it like for your feet to be in contact with the floor? Your toes. And just be aware of your entire body at once. Just scan your attention from the top of your head to your feet, just noticing the whole body. This body in this moment, in this sacred moment of your life. And noticing the breath. Just bringing your awareness to what it is like to be sitting here, right now. Now notice if you're experiencing any emotion in the body right now. Anywhere in your body. Again, bringing that image of that loved one to mind. What are the physical sensations associated with that emotion? What's the name of the emotion? And if you're not experiencing any strong emotion right now, then notice what that feels like. We're just curious, just exploring. And let's just do a little experiment. See if you can just do a small smile with your mouth. Just raise the edges of your mouth slightly. Does smiling change the way that you're feeling? What if that loved one is smiling back at you? What are you experiencing? Are there feelings of satisfaction or love or happiness? If so, or not, where in the body are you experiencing this? And now once again, bringing your attention to the breath. And coming back here now. If you could open your eyes. Thank you. How was that experience? How did that feel? What came up for you? Again, if anyone is so moved to put anything in the chat box, please do. And if not, that's okay too. Thank you very much for your patience and sitting with me to do that. If we'd let Sahan do that, we would have been there a lot longer, just letting you know now, okay? All right, All great, wonderful practice, but what if you've already been triggered and you've gone over the edge, and now what do you do? Okay, that all sounds well and good, you know, if you're feeling really calm and you've managed to pull yourself in, but what if you know, someone's just pushed that button, you know, that well-worn button, and they've pushed it really hard? How do we come back to calm? And then how do we stay calm despite all the chaos? How do we stop being reactive even after we've been triggered? And of course, when we're triggered, we triggered others, right? Is that what happens to you? That's what I tend to do. Okay, how do we come back to freedom where we, and not the frustrations and actions of others or situations, tyrannize us so that we feel that we're a victim of our lives and are powerless? How do we stop that activation of that stress mechanism that Sahan was talking about? So we stop being in a state of fear or frustration or anxiety, whatever it is. The good news is, no matter what's happening, even in the middle of the biggest tantrum that you might be having, you still have the power of choice now. At every moment, that power of choice, that freedom is always there. So I'm going to teach you this really very, very simple but incredibly practical and effective practice to help us do that. It's called SBNRR, and it's just a practical way of bringing ourselves back to that space between stimulus and response that Viktor Frankl told us about, so we can make a choice, so we can have an intentional life, how we're going to respond. And it builds on the body scan practice, okay? Really good way of remembering this SBNRR is somebody needs rest and relaxation. Somebody needs rest and relaxation. Okay, step number 1, stop. I'm sure many of you have heard of this before. It's called the sacred pause. It's the most important step. The moment we stop, we wake up. You know, we were talking about that autopilot, often where we're having a tantrum or have lost it. We're not here anymore, right? If we can stop, that act of stopping immediately brings us out of that, okay? Step number 1, stop. And that takes courage and practice. Step number 2, breathe. We've done a few breathing practices now, and you see how effective it is, how so quickly we go from agitation to peace, yeah? Because it focuses, the focus of the mind on the breath reinforces that sacred pause. It calms the body and the mind. N is for notice. Okay, so now that we've stopped, we have the power to notice. And what are we going to notice? Remember that our body is has really valuable data. You check in with yourself. What's going on? What are the physiological sensations that I have? Again, with an attitude of curiosity and kindness. And what would it be like if we experience this emotion that's happening as experiential and not existential, right? It's just a physiological phenomenon. It's just clouds coming through the sky, right? It's not me. I am not anxiety. I am having an experience of anxiety in my body. I am not anger. I am having an experience of anger in my body, okay? Then, because we now have that knowledge, then we go to the next step, step number 4, which is reflect. And you can really think about it. You go, well, where is this emotion coming from? You know, why the hell did I get triggered for something as small as that? And why did I lose it in such a big way when all they said was whatever, right? What's going on for the other person? Why? Sometimes, you know, people behave in a really erratic, crazy way and you don't know why they've behaved the way they have. What's going on for them? Why have they responded the way they have? So it allows perspective taking for yourself and for the other person. And then so we have an opportunity to reframe, because everybody wants to be safe and happy and respected. And so we can work out, well, what's going on? Why are they behaving that way? And why am I behaving this way? Then now we're in a position to respond, to live an intentional life. Just if I can give you an analogy, which works in Australia, I don't know if it works in Sri Lanka. I think it does, because people from Australia go surfing in Sri Lanka. Say we can't stop the waves, but we can learn how to surf. So this is a good surfing lesson, okay? So in the current challenging times, this SBNRR practice is a fabulous practice. But let me give you one very short practice, which if you can't even do that, this one you can do in 2 breaths. So this is just bring this to mind. In breath, breathing in, I do my best. Breathing in, I do my best. Breathing out, I let go of the rest. Breathing in, I do my best. Breathing out, I let go of the rest. Okay, thank you.
So thank you so much, Tusa. That was lovely. I see that we only have 2 minutes left. So with your permission, we would like to take another 5 minutes. So if you would want us to continue for the next 5 minutes or so, let us know.
Yes, San, please go ahead. Perfect.
If not, we'll quickly close the session. Yes.
Please go ahead.
So, yeah, so this is the last practice that we would like to share. But before that, I would like to ask a little question, right? All of us have thoughts, right? We know that. But can you guess how many thoughts you have in a day, right? Is it 1,000, 10,000, 20,000? Feel free to share. Like I would like to know, or 50,000? Yes, very close. Right? Anyone else who wants to try their luck? Any guesses? We all have thoughts, but roughly, if you were to make a small assumption, I have X many number of thoughts. 75,000? Yes, very close. So roughly, it's around 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. Some researchers actually suggest that it could even be high as 80,000. But in a nutshell, and the funny thing is, 80% of these thoughts are negative. Right? So take yesterday or take past week, for example. See if this applies to you. Like on average, 80% of our thoughts are negative and 90% are repetitive. So for example, if you have to pay your mortgage, right, your housing loan, you would remember that today, you'll remember the same thing tomorrow and day after tomorrow. If you have a work deadline, you'll remember the deadline. Till you reach that deadline, you'll have these thoughts coming up over and over again, right? And it's very natural. So if you notice that you have a mind that loves to throw worst case scenarios at you, not to worry, it's performing up to the standards, So if you look at maybe our ancestors, our great ancestors who lived maybe 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 years back, right? All these individuals had the same mind, They also had negative thoughts. So for example, 100,000 years back, our great ancestors would have been food. So it's natural to have this negativity bias. So this is what is known as the negativity bias in the science community. And it's very natural. But the funny thing is 85% of the worst case scenarios that we predict or our brains predict don't actually really happen. And even when they do, and the study was done by Cornell University, they found out that close to 80% of the participants said, you know what, I was able to handle this situation better than I expected. And some people go to the extent of saying it was actually a learning opportunity. And you hear this not only from, average Joes like us, but from cancer patients, right? Even cancer patients say, you know what, I actually, I consider this a learning opportunity. So how can we use or convert the negativity bias by using a technique called reframing? So for this technique, we are actually going to utilize journaling. So journaling is a very powerful tool that you can use when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, to have clarity. Body scan, which we practiced earlier. And thirdly, visualization, right? So I know we've run out of time, but the framework is very simple and it's very effective. The objective is to identify the top 3 stressors in your life, right? So identify the top 3 stressors in your life and jot them down. So take a piece of paper. Avoid using electronic devices as much as possible. Use pen and paper. So write down the top 3 stressors. And I'm going to share with you a stressor which I had. And I'm pretty sure this would resonate with most of you. So the stressor was, will the coronavirus or COVID-19 affect me or a loved one or a dear friend? And when I think about this worst case scenario, right? Where in the body do I feel this fear? So we know that sensations manifest in our body, right? Or emotions manifest as physiological sensations. That's what we experience during the body scan technique. So do a quick body scan. Scan your mind or your brain, scan your chest area and your stomach and see, is there any uncomfortable feeling? So when I did this on myself, I noticed that there was fear and anxiety. How do I know it's fear and anxiety? Because there was a tightening in the chest and there's a very uncomfortable sensation, especially in the gut area, stomach area. Now you write down, so you know the best case scenario because that's what your mind throws at you all the time. Instead, you scan the body, you relax your body, you observe there's anxiety and you start naming it. Oh, there's anxiety in my body. There's a tightness in my chest. There's an uncomfortable sensation in my gut area. So the moment you start naming it, you're actually activating your prefrontal cortex. So your language center lies here. So when you're overwhelmed, the best thing that you can do is to do a quick body scan and you start naming it. And the moment you start naming it, you're actually activating your prefrontal cortex. So it's estimated that it takes around 90 seconds to 120 seconds for the prefrontal cortex to get activated when you have fear or anxiety. So when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed. So this is a technique that enables you to quickly switch parts of the brain that you really needed to make decisions, to make rational decisions, to come out with creative solutions. So that's what you're doing by naming these sensations that are occurring in your body. Then instead of writing the worst case scenario, you write down the best case scenario. Best case scenario in this case is the pandemic. During the pandemic, my loved ones are safe. There's an antiviral drug that becomes successful. So overnight, COVID-19 is not a pandemic. It becomes your average cold. So that's the best case scenario. And then when you imagine this best case scenario, what happens to your body, right? So for me, I felt a sense of relief. The tightening of the chest was no longer there, right? So the worst case scenario can create anxiety, fear. The best case scenario can create joy and lightness, a sense of release or a relief. And who was in charge? You were in charge. Your brain was in charge, right? So however dire the situation may be, you are responsible for your mindset, for how you feel, right? No one else can create joy or happiness for you, though many believe it can be done. You are responsible. And then what can you do? You know what? How can you increase the likelihood of this happening? Well, number one, I can follow the safety protocols given by the government, WHO. I can help people to come out of anxiety and fear because this is what I do. This is my job, basically. I've learned, spent years training, practicing. And finally, I can be in the present moment. As of now, at this very moment, I am safe and healthy. My friends are safe and healthy. My family is safe and healthy. So to finish off, I'll share a quick practice. Tusa, would you want to take over?
Sure.
So the practice is...
three breaths practice, which is very, very, very simple. Again, this is I use this a lot and I find it very effective. It's essentially just 3 breaths. And if I could just invite you to just join me now. I know you've all been concentrating for a long time, but this is a really lovely thing to do. So just first breath, just give attention to the breath. Just notice that you're breathing. Second breath, just relax the body. And third breath, ask yourself, what's important now? What's important now? And this immediately gets you to come out of autopilot into aware. So rather than doing your habitual responses, you actually think it through. What is the most important thing now? How do I live an intentional life? And no one needs to know you're doing this practice. You can do it while you're sitting there, standing, waiting. Yeah. Thank you. So Sahan.
So, yes, so we've come to the very end of our session. So something that we asked ourselves as a team was, how can we be of service? And considering that we are emotional intelligence teachers, mindfulness practitioners, we felt that we could share some of these practices that we actually utilize in our life. And that works for us. And it works for our clients and the individuals who participate in our programs. So from March onwards, we've conducted free sessions across the globe. Atus and I conducted a session for healthcare workers, healthcare professionals, and social workers in Australia 2 weeks back, which was very well received. And we are hoping to do another session. So this is the answer that we got when we asked this question, how can we be of service? And a question that we would like to pose to you is, how can you be of service? If you do have the capability, the capacity, the knowledge, and the know-how, please volunteer for an organization that is helping individuals to overcome this crisis. If you do have the financial means, do support organizations like ICRC or UNICEF or even Manusat Dharana in Sri Lanka. And if you want to be a part of our movement, feel free to write to us, and we would love to hear your thoughts, ideas as well. And if I were to quickly recap, these are all the practices that we engaged in. So we started off with the arrival practice, then we did the 4x4 body scan, which Tusa did, then 3 breaths, then SBNRR, when you're triggered, something that can truly be of service. Then the acceptance practice. And finally, we come to the very end. And before that, we would like to invite you to pose any questions that you have regarding the practice. We would love to answer them if we can, to share insights. I know we've run out of time, but feel free to ask these questions. You can always contact us on LinkedIn or write to us. If there are no questions, I would like to share a final practice before we end it off, before we end the session. So since there aren't any questions, Tusa, shall we close the session with another practice?
That would be lovely.
Yeah. Okay then. So we started off with a arrival practice. Let's end the session with a very small practice. So I would like to encourage you to take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, gently close your eyes. Let's take another deep breath in. And as you exhale, relax your body, relax your mind. Let's take another deep breath in. And as you exhale, ask yourself, is there something that you're truly grateful for? Is it the ability to be with your loved ones? Is it the ability to connect with individuals even during a challenging period? Or is it the ability to have financial security, safety, even amidst a pandemic? What are you truly grateful for? Are you grateful for the health that you have at this very moment? Let's take another deep breath in. And as you exhale, let's bring our attention, open our minds to the fact that there are thousands and thousands of individuals, human beings, mothers and fathers who've lost their sons and daughters. There are thousands and thousands of individuals who've lost their loved ones, their dear ones, their friends. There are thousands and thousands of individuals who've lost their jobs, who are unable to feed their families, who are going through a lot of pain and suffering. What if we could send them positive thoughts, thoughts of goodwill? So taking another deep breath in, and as you exhale, just reciting in your mind these positive words, positive affirmations. May all these individuals who are suffering be well, be happy. May all these individuals find safety, comfort. May they be healthy and happy. And when you're reciting these positive words in your mind, cultivate a kind, compassionate emotion. The emotion is far more important than the words themselves. So cultivate this warmth, kindness. May all these beings be well, be happy. May they find peace and safety. May all these beings find joy, calmness, and serenity. May they find the strength to overcome these challenging times. You can even send these positive thoughts yourself. May I find strength. May I find courage to overcome these challenging times. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I find safety and security in these challenging times. May my friends, my family members be safe, be healthy, be happy. During these challenging times, may they find happiness and joy even amidst these challenging times. Let's take another deep breath in. And as you exhale, relax your body, relax your mind, and let go of any images, thoughts that you have right now in your mind. Let's take another deep breath in. And as you exhale, further relax your body, relax your mind, and gently open your eyes. And gently open your eyes. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's session. I hope this was beneficial. We unfortunately don't have time to share the science behind compassion, the science behind sympathetic distress, and how you can overcome it. But during the time that we spent together, I believe we were able to share several techniques with you. Hopefully, you'll be able to utilize them when you go to work tomorrow and even at home. So on that note, thank you very much, Atusa.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
May I take for a minute, Sahan?
Yes, please.
Okay, once again, thank you very much, Tuza and Sahan, for taking your valuable time for this wonderful session. I think it's really, really an eye-opening session and a useful session for all of us. And again, we can bring this session to an end. Again, I would like to bring your attention to the first comment that Tuza started this moment between the stimulus and the response. If you can manage that split second or whatever the nanosecond between the stimulus and response, I'm sure so many prisons of this world will be empty, and so many marriages will survive divorces, and so many bullets will not be fired, and so many thousands of lives will be saved. I think if you don't take anything, that is, I think, what we can take out of this session. Once again, thank you very much for taking your time, and we are planning to do a lot of sessions like this, let's be in touch so that you can get the benefit out of that. Once again, thank you very much for the lovely presentations. Thank you, Tuza and Sahan. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.